Hi, welcome back to Spencer Specs tutorial videos. This is the third video in the sequence of our tutorials. The first one was to let you know how you should set up your weekly specs, so you'll get a copy of the specs weekly. You want to set up your time zone, add any trip notes or track biases that you've kept. Second one, you're going to load the BRIZ data from BRIZnet, paste the data into the data tab, and load your carryover data, and that'll get you this far. Once you get this far, you want to go into this toss percent bias multiplier. And what that allows you to do is to modify the toss percent. When we run the daily find ideal weightings, early and late phase weightings, it will also give you an ideal toss percentage. You'll see that most days this 89-90%, at least on average for all tracks, it comes out to be the appropriate percent. What this really does is it sets the I only go back 6 races that we look at to kind of try to identify what we expect out of each horse that's running on the card. And when I go back to 6 races, it's really looking at this toss percent will allow it to automatically eliminate a race. Like you have a race where a horse came back sore, or first off a layoff and got really tired, or ran into a bunch of problems, and you don't want to have to go watch all the videos. But if you set this toss percent up, it will average, I'll only go back 6 races, so it will average the other 5 races in that 6-race sequence and say, okay, what's 90% of that average rating for those horses? And if this race is not within 90%, or whatever you have set as a toss percent, it won't use it. So if you set this closer to 100%, it will find fewer and fewer races to base its opinion of that horse on. If you set it bigger, it's going to find more races. It's going to exclude fewer out of those 6 and be a little more forgiving. Well, actually less forgiving, right? It's going to, you run a crappy race because you got in trouble, it's still going to use it as part of the calculation. So that's what the percentage is. This and then these 4 fields help you set the dirt or all-weather sprint, dirt or all-weather route, turf sprint, and turf route weightings for today's card. If I set this is actually going to be the early pace or the speed weight ratings. So I set this at 1.2. It will multiply for 3 of the 5 methods where it uses early pace plus late pace in its calculation. It will multiply early pace by 1.2. It will multiply late pace by 0.8. It will take 2 minus whatever I set this up at. So if I set this at 0.8, it's going to multiply the early pace by 0.8 and the late pace by 1.2 before it gets added together. And that will give us an opportunity to say we think the track plays on Fridays at Keeneland more to early pace on the dirt. So I set it up to 1.2. If I go much higher than 1.2, it's going to be a really pretty big bias we're expecting. Because really if I set it at 1.2, that's 150% of 0.8. So you're weighing late or early pace in this instance 150% of what you're weighing late pace. So you keep that in mind. I don't go much above 1.2 or below 0.8 unless I have a really strong opinion that the track's going to be favoring one way or the other. And there are times where the ideal weighting is 0 or 2 in here, because at the end of the day we can run a routine that tells me what would the ideal weighting have been to get the most winners as my top ranked horse, and if there's a tie with the most winners by any of these ratings, then which one gave me the closest or the lowest average rank of the winner. We'll talk about that as we go through more of these other videos. So when I'm done and I set up what I want my weighting to be, I'm going to return to my main menu, move to the next one, and this is the first or second time starter in stakes horse pedigree query. If I click on that, it's actually going to give me a listing. You're going to see I have all of these horses that are first or second time starters. I think pedigree information is extremely valuable. It tells me what the mare did and what all of the mare's progeny or the siblings of the horse that's running today did. We'll click a button. There's 2 buttons. If I click on Run Breed Mare Query, it's going to go through an algorithm, because there could be more than one horse named Full Figure. Probably is more than one horse named Beautician, for instance. And it will go through an algorithm. It'll run and pull the information in for Beautician. And if none of the progeny, if none of the foals were preamble, or if they did not have a breed mare sire listed as de Hare, it is going to move on and say, oh, there's not a match here. And after it goes through all these horses, it'll circle back through and it'll go to Beautician 2. It'll put a 2 after the beautician, and it'll go and check and pull that information in, and it'll do the same data checking. If the broodmare sire for any of the progeny, which should be all of the progeny, says it's the hair, then that's a match. It also then looks and says, okay, do I have preamble in the listing? And if I don't, it adds it to the bottom of the listing. Because a lot of times, especially for first-time starters, these horses may not be listed yet in the pedigree query database. So once it finds a sibling that it knows, it assumes that's the correct match, and it will add Queen Alexandrina at the bottom. Again, I'm going to click a button, I'm going to let it run, and I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more, because I'm going to click on this button, because this button takes a little bit more time. It runs through that algorithm to look for every one of these horses, right? So I know, because I've ran this once before, one of these down here is actually needs to have a number 9 after it, so it's going to take a while to run if I click on run BM query. Because of that, I'm going to click on the manual mare lookup, so it will only go through this list once, and then it'll come back and I'll have a 6 or 7 of these that I may need to go manually look up and find the number. Also, if you're confused, you may want to read this message down below. It kind of walks you through in a summary fashion on what I'm saying, or will remind you what you heard. All right, I'm going to go on pause now, and then while I'm running, in fact, I'll just click the button. You'll see that it's running, and I'm going to pause. I'll come back when it's done. Okay. All right, so it's done running. It took about 3 minutes. I had 27 horses, I believe it was, that it looked up. So it ran through it. It took about 3 minutes. You'll notice all these that are in gray are ones that I will have to manually go and look up. So I'll go do that for a couple of them and then rerun it for you. So if I look at beautician, I need to go to pedigree query. So I'll click on the link up here at the top. I put beautician in this field, so I copied it. Now I'm just going to paste it. Do a horse search, and it was by the hair. And so this was the one you can see at the bottom. It says pedigreequery.com/beautician5. So I need to have a 5 after the name beautician. So I can double click and then just hit the number 5. I'm going to do the same thing with Raging Cajun. I'm going to copy it and paste, and then search. Raging Cajun is by El Corredor. And I switch back and forth by hitting just Alt and Tab. And this is the number 2, Raging Cajun 2. Nadashinko. Nadashinko is by Honor and Glory. That is number 4. So I'm going to do that for the rest of these, and I will pause this so that you don't have to watch me look them all up. You probably get the point. And then I will resume running it and come back and show you the results. So I'll talk to you in just a minute. Okay, so I looked them up. There was one that I left alone because there was one thing I wanted to show you. This Delilah Jane. So if I copy that one and paste it back over here again, you're going to see this gives me a list of a whole bunch of horses with the same name. In this horse's case, this is the only horse named Delilah Jane, so you get to see the whole pedigree. The problem that you have is that there is no progeny. If I look up manually, there's nothing for this horse, which means this is, the federal case is the first colt out of the mare Delilah Jane. So if I come over here and I want this to go away, and typically this will also go away, down here the paragraphs will go away if it finds matches for every one of them. I can just type in federal case, and it doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase. And now it's not going to be gray. This goes away, showing me that I've had a complete match. Now I'm going to go over to the stakes and siblings. And for these, you know that it's going to find a match. It may be, number 20 on the mare. Maybe if you do not find a match, if it comes back without a match, then you're going to have to manually look it up, because the number required to be added after the dam's name is more than 20. It will only go through 20 on the process on the prior page. So that being the case, I'm going to click on Run Broodmare Query, this top button. Again, you can do this one. It is less manual work, but it also takes a little bit longer to run through. So if you're quick manually on copy and pasting and looking at what the horse's numbers are, you'll find that it's easier to click the run pre-met query or quicker, and then just add the number manually if you need to. But in this instance, I'm going to just click that button. It's going to warn you that it can take a few minutes longer. Yes, I want to run it. I'll go on pause. Again, it's 7:54 p.m. We'll see how long it takes to run through these handful. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 mares or so. So I'm going to go on pause. I'll be back. Alright, so we're done. You'll notice that it has all of them. I didn't have to manually look anything up. So we're good to go. Now it doesn't put the number, so you don't know which ones it had to add a number to. It's kind of nice. It doesn't muddy it up that way. But what you'll see, in fact, let me go back to the first and second time siblings. You're going to see in the body of what you use to handicap the mom for all the first time starters, what their race record was, and how much money they earned, and the top earning sibling. So this will say Tommy Sue. It'll be Tommy Sue's Pleasure, 3020 with 18,600 in earnings, and has a sibling or brother or sibling named Thomas got even that made 169,000. So that is what is the pedigree information. That's how it takes the effort it takes to get the pedigree information loaded. Now over here on the tweet, this actually does an advanced Twitter search, and it will bring in all of the tweets that have this racetrack. So Keeneland, with the key names, these names, so picks, bets, not names, keywords. See, it goes up to 30-ish keywords that you can use. And down here, I actually have each track 3 or 4 specific. If I know who to, maybe their local handicapper is, their track handicapper is, and if they have a Twitter handle, I will have added it. If you see somebody that does a really good job of tweeting about all tracks or a specific track or circuit, and you'd like me to add them to our list, let me know. That way you don't have to manually do it. But if you want to keep that to yourself and just maybe change one of these or add one to those final couple, by all means you can feel free to add a keyword list. Basically when you come in, you're gonna click on Run Twitter Crawl functionality. It will go and pull information from Twitter. It will load the tweet, and if it says hour or minute in how long ago it's been, it's going to show up. If not, it won't, because we don't want stuff that's super old. So saying ignore it, I don't want it to go back 4 weeks and tell you something about a horse that already ran. I want it to be a tweet that's reasonably recent. If it finds a match on the horse's name that's on the card today, it will put that horse's race and program number in this field. If it doesn't, and it believes based on some keyword searches that these are selections, it's going to tell you it's a selection. If it doesn't, and there's actually like an HTTP address in the tweet, it will tell you that it's a link to maybe somebody else's selections. And it will sort by that so that the ones that it actually could identify will be at the top. So I'm going to click on Run Twitter Crawl, and then I'll go on pause again for a minute. Alright, so that's done, and again, we ran this a couple of days in advance, so it's only showing you links to any of the horses, because there's no horses that ran on today's card with any tweets about them. We'll go back to the main menu, and that is it for this section. So we will see you a little bit later where we talk about kind of the tabs that'll show up when you click on these buttons and move on down the list. Alright, thanks.